Chapter 13. Inflow of new thoughts can remake you. One of the most important and powerful facts about you is expressed in the following statement by William James, who was one of the wisest men America has produced. William James said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. As you think, so shall you be. So flush out all old, tired, worn out thoughts. Fill your mind with fresh, new creative thoughts of faith, love, and goodness. By this process, you can actually remake your life." And where do you find such personality remaking thoughts? I know a business executive, a modest man, but the type of individual who is never defeated. No problem, no setback, no opposition ever gets him down. He simply attacks each difficulty with an optimistic attitude and a sure confidence that it will work out right. And in some strange way, it always does for him. He seems to have a magic touch on life, that is, a touch that never fails. Because of that impressive characteristic, this man always interested me. I knew there was a definite explanation of his being this way, and of course wanted to hear his story. But in view of his modesty and reticence, it was not easy to persuade him to talk about himself. One day when he was in the mood, he told me his secret, an amazingly simple but effective secret. I was visiting his plant, a modern, up-to-date structure, much of it air-conditioned. Latest type machinery and methods of production make it a factory of outstanding efficiency. Labor management relations seems as nearly perfect as is possible among imperfect human beings. A spirit of goodwill pervades the entire organization. His office is ultra modernistically decorated and furnished with handsome desks, rugs, and paneled with exotic woods. The decorating scheme is five startling colors blended together pleasantly. All in all, it is the last word and then some. Imagine, then, my surprise to see on his highly polished white mahogany desk an old battered copy of the Bible. It was the only old object in those ultra-modern rooms. I commented upon this seemingly strange inconsistency. "That book," he replied, pointing to the Bible, "is the most up-to-date thing in this plant. Equipment wears out and furnishing styles change, but that book is so far ahead of us that it never gets out of date." When I went to college, my good Christian mother gave me that Bible with the suggestion that if I would read and practice its teachings, I would learn how to get through life successfully. But I thought she was just a nice old lady, he chuckled. At my age, she seemed old. She wasn't really, and to humor her, I took the Bible, but for years practically never looked at it. I thought I didn't need it. Well, he continued slangily, I was a dope, I was stupid, and I got my life in a terrible mess. Everything went wrong primarily because I was wrong. I was thinking wrong, acting wrong, doing wrong. I succeeded at nothing, failed at everything. Now I realize that my principal trouble was wrong thinking. I was negative, resentful, cocky, opinionated. Nobody could tell me anything. I thought I knew everything. I was filled with gripes at everybody. Little wonder nobody liked me. I certainly was a washout. So ran his dismal story. One night, in going through some papers, he continued, I came across the long forgotten Bible. It brought up old memories and I started aimlessly to read it. Do you know it is strange how things happen? How in just a flashing moment of time everything becomes different? Well, as I read, a sentence leaped up at me, a sentence that changed my life. And when I say I changed, I mean changed. From the minute I read that sentence, everything has been different, tremendously different. What is this wonderful sentence? I wanted to know, and he quoted it slowly. The Lord is the strength of my life. In this will I be confident. Psalm 27, verse 1 to 3. I don't know why that one line affected me so, he went on, but it did. I know now that I was weak and a failure because I had no faith, no confidence. I was very negative, a defeatist. Something happened inside my mind. I guess I had what they call a spiritual experience. My thought pattern shifted from negative to positive. I decided to put my faith in God and sincerely do my best, trying to follow the principles outlined in the Bible. As I did so, I began to get hold of a new set of thoughts. I began to think differently. In time, my old failure thoughts were flushed out by this new spiritual experience, and an inflow of new thoughts gradually, but actually, remade me. So concluded the story of this businessman. He altered his thinking, and the new thoughts which flowed in displaced the old thoughts which had been defeating him, and his life was changed. This incident illustrates an important fact about human nature. You can think your way to failure and unhappiness, but you can also think your way to success and happiness. The world in which you live is not primarily determined by outward conditions and circumstances, but by thoughts and habitually occupy by thoughts that habitually occupy your mind. Remember the wise words of Marcus Aurelius, one of the great thinkers of antiquity, who said, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." It has been said that the wisest man who ever lived in America was Ralph Emerson, the sage of Concord. Emerson declared, "A man is what he thinks about all day long." A famous psychologist says there is a deep tendency in human nature to become precisely like that which you habitually imagine yourself to be. It has been said that thoughts are things, that they actually possess dynamic power. Judged by the power they exercise, one can readily accept such an appraisal. You can actually think yourself into or out of situations. You can make yourself ill with your thoughts, and by the same token, you can make yourself well by the use of a different and healing type of thought. Think one way, and you attract the conditions which that type of thinking indicates. Think another way, and you can create an entirely different set of conditions. Conditions are created by thoughts, far more powerful than conditions create thoughts. Think positively, for example, and you set in motion positive forces which bring positive results to pass. Positive thoughts create around yourself an atmosphere propitious to the development of positive outcomes. On the contrary, think negative thoughts and you create around yourself an atmosphere propitious to the development of negative results. To change your circumstances, first start thinking differently. Do not passively accept unsatisfactory circumstances, but form a picture in your mind of circumstances as they should be. Hold that picture, develop it firmly in all details. Believe in it, pray about it, work at it, and you can actualize it according to that mental image emphasized in your positive thinking. This is one of the greatest laws in the universe. Fervently do I wish I had discovered it as a very young man. It dawned upon me much later in life, and I have found it to be one of the greatest, if not my greatest discovery, outside of my relationship to God. And in a deep sense, this law is a factor in one's relationship with God because it channels God's power into personality. This great law, briefly and simply stated, is that if you think in negative terms, you will get negative results. If you think in positive terms, you will achieve positive results. That is the simple fact which is at the basis of an astonishing law of prosperity and success. In 3 words, believe and succeed. I learned this law in a very interesting manner. Some years ago, a group of us consisting of Lowell Thomas, Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, Branch Rickey, Raymond Thornburg, and others established an inspirational self-help magazine called Guideposts. This magazine has a double function. First, by relating stories of people who, through their faith, have overcome difficulties, it teaches techniques of victorious living, victory over fear, over circumstances, over obstacles, over resentment. It teaches faith over all manner of negativism. Second, as a non-profit, non-sectarian interfaith publication, it teaches the great fact that God is in the stream of history and that this nation was founded on belief in God and his laws. The magazine reminds its readers that America is the first great nation in history to be established on a definitely religious premise, and that unless we keep it so, our freedoms will deteriorate. Mr. Raymond Thornburg, as publisher, and I, as editor, in starting the magazine, had no financial backing to underwrite it. It was begun on faith. In fact, its first office were in rooms above a grocery store in the little village of Paulding, New York. There was a borrowed typewriter, a few rickety chairs, and that was all. All except a great idea and great faith. Slowly, a subscription list of 25,000 developed. The future seemed promising. Suddenly, one night, fire broke out, and within an hour, the publishing house was destroyed, and with it, the list of subscribers. Foolishly, no duplicate list had been made. Lowell Thomas, loyal and efficient patron of Guideposts from the very start, mentioned this sad circumstance on his radio broadcast, and as a result, we soon had 30,000 subscribers, practically all the old ones and many new ones. The subscription list rose to approximately 40,000, but costs increased even more rapidly. The magazine, which has always been sold for less than cost in order to widely disseminate the message, was more expensive than anticipated, and we were faced with difficult financial problems. In fact, at one time, it seemed almost impossible to keep it going. At this juncture, we called a meeting, and I'm sure you never attended a more pessimistic, negative, discouraging meeting. It dripped with pessimism. Where were we going to get the money to pay our bills? We figured out ways of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Complete discouragement filled our minds. A woman had been invited to this meeting whom we all regarded most highly, but one reason she was included in this meeting was because on a previous occasion she had contributed $2,000 to help inaugurate Guidepost magazine. It was hoped that lightning might strike twice in the same place, but this time she gave us something of more value than money. As this dismal meeting progressed, she remained silent for a long time, but finally said, "I suppose you gentlemen would like me to make another financial contribution. I might as well pay you out of your misery. Or rather, I might as well put you out of your misery. I am not going to give you another cent." This did not put us out of our misery. On the contrary, it put us deeper into our misery. But she continued, "I will give you something far more valuable than money." This astonished us, for we could not possibly imagine anything of more value than money in the circumstances. "I am going to give you an idea," she continued, "a creative idea." Well, we thought to ourselves unenthusiastically, how can we pay our bills with an idea? But an idea is just what will help you pay bills. Every achievement in this world was first projected as a creative idea. First the idea, then faith in it, then the means of implementing the idea. That is the way the success proceeds. "No," she said, "here is the idea. What is your present trouble? It is that you lack everything. You lack money, you lack subscribers, you lack equipment, you lack ideas, you lack courage. Why do you lack all these requirements? Simply because you are thinking lack. If you think lack, you create the conditions that produce a state of lack. By this constant mental emphasis upon what you lack, you have frustrated the creative forces that can give impetus to the development of Guideposts. You have been working hard from the standpoint of doing many things, but you have failed to do the one all-important thing that will lend power to all your other efforts. You have not employed positive thinking. Instead, you have been thought in terms of lack. To correct that situation, reverse the mental process and bring and begin to think prosperity, achievement, success. This will require practice, but it can be done quickly if you will demonstrate faith. The process is to visualize, that is, to see guideposts in terms of successful achievement. Create a mental picture of guideposts as a great magazine sweeping the country. Visualize large numbers of subscribers, all eagerly reading this inspirational material and profiting thereby. Create a mental image of lives being changed by the philosophy of achievement, which Guidepost teaches monthly in its issues. Do not hold mental pictures of difficulties and failures, but lift your mind above them and visualize powers and achievements. When you elevate your thoughts into the area of visualized attainment, you look down on your problems rather than from below up at them, and thus you get a much more encouraging view of them. Always come up over your problems, never approach a problem from below. Now, let me continue further, she said. How many subscribers do you need at the moment to keep going? We thought quickly and said 100,000. We had 40,000. All right, she said confidently. That is not hard. That is easy. Visualize 100,000 people being creatively helped by this magazine, and you will have them. In fact, the minute you see them in your mind, you will have them. She turned to me and said, Norman, can you see 100 subscribers at this minute? Look out there. Look ahead of you. In your mind's eye, can you see them? I wasn't convinced as yet, and I said rather doubtfully, well, maybe so, but they seem pretty dim to me. She was a little disappointed in me, I thought, as she asked, can't you imaginatively visualize 100 subscribers? I guess my imagination wasn't working very well because all I could see was the insufficient but actually 40,000. Then she turned to my old friend Raymond Thornburg, who was being blessed with a gloriously victorious personality, and she said, calling him by his nickname, Pinky, can you visualize 100,000 subscribers? I rather doubted that Pinky would see them. He is a rubber manufacturer who gives his time freely from his own business to help advance this inspirational non-profit magazine, and you would not ordinarily think that a rubber manufacturer would respond to this type of thinking. But he has the faculty of creative imagination. I noticed by the fascinated look on his face that she had him. He was gazing straight ahead with rather a look of wonder when she asked, do you see the 100,000 subscribers? Yes, he cried with eagerness. Yes, I do see them. Electrified, I demanded, where? Point them out to me. Then I too began to visualize them. No, continued our friend. Let us bow our heads together and thank God for giving us 100,000 subscribers. Frankly, I thought that was pushing the Lord rather hard, but it was justified by a verse in the scriptures where it says, and all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive. Matthew 21 verse 22. That means when you pray for something, at the same time visualize what you pray for. Believe that if it's God's will and it's worthwhile, not selfishly sought after, but for human good, and that it is at that moment given you. If you have difficulty in following this reasoning, let me tell you that from that moment until the present writing Guidepost never lacked for anything. It has found wonderful friends and has had fine support. It has been able always to meet its bills, purchase needed equipment, finance itself, and as I write these words, Guidepost is nearly the 500,000 mark, and more subscriptions are coming in regularly, sometimes as many as 3,000 or 4,000 per day. I recite this instant not for the purpose of advertising Guideposts, although I strongly recommend this magazine to all my readers, and if you would like to be a subscriber, write to Guidepost Pauling, New York for information. But I tell the story because I was awed by this experience, realizing that I had stumbled upon a law, a tremendous law of personal victory. I decided to apply it thereafter to my own problems, and wherever I have done so can report a marvelous result. Wherever I have failed to do so, I have missed great results. It is as simple as this. That is, put your problem in God's hands. In your thoughts, Rise above the problem so that you look down upon it, not up at it. Test it according to God's will. That is, do not try to get success from something that is wrong. Be sure it is right morally, spiritually, and ethically. You can never get a right result from an error. If your thinking is wrong, it is wrong and not right, and can never be wrong and can never be right so long as it is wrong. If it is wrong in the essence, it is bound to be wrong in the result. Therefore, be sure it is right, then hold it up in God's name and visualize a great result. Keep the idea of prosperity, of achievement, and of attainment firmly fixed in your mind. Never entertain a failure thought. Should a negative thought of defeat come into your mind, expel it by increasing the positive affirmation. Affirm aloud, God is now giving me success. He is now giving me attainment. The mental vision which you create and firmly hold in consciousness will be actualized if you continually affirm it in your thoughts and if you work diligently and effectively. This creative process, simply stated, is visualize, prayerize, and finally actualize. People in all walks of life who accomplish notable achievements know the value of this law in their experience. Henry J. Kaiser told me that at one time he was building a levee along a riverbank, and there came a great storm and flood which buried all his earth-moving machinery and destroyed the work that had been done. Upon going out to observe the damage after the water receded, he found his workers standing around glumly, looking at the mud and the buried machinery. He came among them and said with a smile, "Why are you so glum? Don't you see what has happened?" They asked. "Our machinery is covered with mud." "What mud?" he asked brightly. "What mud?" they repeated in astonishment. "Look around you. It is a sea of mud." "Oh," he laughed, "I don't see any mud." "But how can you say that?" they asked him. "Because," said Mr. Kaiser, "I am looking up at a clear blue sky, and there is no mud up there. There is only sunshine, and I never saw any mud that would stand against sunshine. Soon it will be dried up, and then you will be able to move your machinery and start all over again." How right he is. If your eyes are looking down in the mud and you feel a sense of failure, you will create defeat for yourself. Optimistic visualization combined with prayer and faith will inevitably actualize achievement. Another friend of mine who started from the lowest beginnings has performed some outstanding achievements. I remember him in his school days as an awkward, unprepossessing, very shy country boy, but he had character and one of the keenest brains I have ever encountered. Today he is an outstanding man in his line. I asked him, "What is the secret of your success?" "The people who had worked with me across the years and the unlimited opportunity given any boy in the United States of America," he replied. "Yes, I know that is true, but I am sure you must have some personal technique, and I would be interested in having it," I said. "It all lies in how you think about problems," he replied. "I attack a problem and shake it to pieces with my mind. I put all the mental power I have upon it. Second, I pray about it most sincerely. Third, I paint a mental picture of success. Fourth, I always ask myself, what is the right thing to do? For he said, nothing will be right if it is wrong. Nothing that is wrong will ever come out right. Fifth, I give it all I've got. But let me emphasize again," he concluded. "If you are thinking defeat, change your thoughts at once. Get new and positive thoughts. That is primary and basic in overcoming difficulties and in achieving." At this very minute, as you read this book, potential ideas are in your mind. By releasing and developing these ideas, you can solve your financial problem, your business situation. You can care for yourself and your family and attain success in your ventures. A steady inflow and practical use of these creative thoughts can remake your life and you along with it. There was a time when I acquired in the silly idea that there is no relationship between faith and prosperity, that when one talked about religion, he should never relate it to the achievement, that it dealt only with ethics and morals or social values. But now I realize that such a viewpoint limits the power of God and the development of the individual. Religion teaches that there is a tremendous power in the universe and that this power can dwell in personality. It is a power that can blast out all defeat and lift a person above all difficult situations. We have seen the demonstration of atomic energy. We know that astonishing and enormous energy exists in the universe. This same force of energy is resident in the human mind. Nothing on earth is greater than the human mind in potential power. The average individual is capable of much greater achievement than he has ever realized. This is true regardless of who is reading the statement. When you actually learn to release yourself, you will discover that your mind contains ideas of such creative value that you need not lack anything. By the full and proper use of your power, stimulated by God power, you can make your life successful. You can make it just about anything of your life. That is, anything you will believe or will visualize, anything you will pray for and work for. Look deeply into your mind, amazing wonders are there. Whatever your situation may be, you can improve it. First, quiet your mind so that inspirations may rise from its depths. Believe that God is now helping you. Visualize achievement. Organize your life on a spiritual basis so that God's principles work within you. Hold firmly in your mind a picture not of failure but of success. Do these things and creative thoughts will flow freely from your mind. This is an amazing law, one that can change anybody's life, including your own. An inflow of new thoughts can remake you regardless of every difficulty you may now face, and I repeat, every difficulty. In the last analysis, the basic reason a person fails to live a creative and successful life is because of error within himself. He thinks wrong. He needs to correct the error in his thoughts. He needs to practice right thinking. When the 23rd Psalm says, He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness, it not only means the path of goodness, but the paths of right-mindedness as well. When Isaiah says, Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thoughts, Isaiah 55 verse 7, it not only means that a person is to depart from evil and do good, but that he is to change his thinking from wrong to right, from error to truth. The great secret of successful living is to reduce the amount of error in oneself and increase the amount of truth. An inflow of new, right, health-laden thoughts through the mind creatively affects the circumstances of life, for truth always produces right procedures and therefore right results. Years ago, I knew a young man who for a while was one of the most complete personality failures in my entire experience. He had a delightful personality, but he failed at everything. A person would employ him and be enthusiastic about him, but soon his enthusiasm would cool, and it was not long until the young man was out of that position. This failure pattern was repeated many times. He was a failure as a person as well as an employee. He missed connections with everything. He just couldn't do anything right. And he used to ask me, what is wrong with me that everything goes wrong? Still, he had a lot of conceit. He was cocky and smug and had the irritating habit of blaming everybody but himself. Something was wrong with every office with which he was connected or every organization that employed him. He blamed everybody else for his failures, never himself. He would never look inside himself. It never occurred to him that anything could be wrong with him. One night, however, he wanted to talk with me, and as I had to make a drive of about 100 miles to deliver a speech, he drove there and back with me. On our return, we stopped along about midnight at a roadside stand for a hamburger and a cup of coffee. I don't know what was in that hamburger sandwich, but since this incident, I have had a new respect for hamburgers. For of a sudden, he shouted, I've got it! I've got it! You've got what? I asked in astonishment. I have got the answer. Now I know what's the trouble with me. It's that everything goes wrong with me because I myself am wrong. I clapped my hand on his back and said, Boy, at last, you are on your way. Why? It's as clear as crystal, he said. I have been thinking wrong, and as a result, I have created wrong outcomes. By this time, we were out in the moonlight standing alongside my car, and I said to him, Harry, you must go one step further and ask God to make you right inwardly. I quoted this passage from the Bible. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John 8, verse 32. Get the truth into your mind and you will be free of your failures. He became an enthusiastic practicing follower of Jesus Christ. Through real faith and a complete change of thoughts and personal habits, wrong thinking and wrong acting were removed from his nature. He straightened out by developing a right or righteousness pattern instead of an error pattern. When he was made right, then everything began to go right for him. Following are 7 practical steps for changing your mental attitudes from negative to positive, for releasing creative new thoughts, and for shifting from error patterns to truth patterns. Try them, keep on trying them, they will work. 1. For the next 24 hours, deliberately speak hopefully about everything, about your job, about your health, about your future. Go out of your way to talk optimistically about everything. This will be difficult for possibly it is your habit to talk pessimistically. From this negative habit, you must restrain yourself even if it requires an act of will. 2. After speaking hopefully for 24 hours, continue the practice for 1 week. Then you can be permitted to be realistic for a day or two. You will discover that what you meant by realistic a week ago was actually pessimistic, but what you now mean by realistic is something entirely different. It is the dawning of the positive outlook. When most people say they are being realistic, they delude themselves. They are simply being negative. 3. You must feed your mind even as you feed your body. And to make your mind healthy, you must feed it nourishing, wholesome thoughts. Therefore, today, start to shift your mind from negative to positive thinking. Start at the beginning of the New Testament and underscore every sentence about faith. Continue doing this until you have marked every such passage in the 4 books: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Particularly note Mark 11 verses 22, 23, and 24. They will serve as samples of the verses you are to underscore and fix deeply in your consciousness. 4. Then commit the underscored passages to memory. Commit one each day until you can recite the entire list from memory. This will take time, but remember you have consumed much more time becoming a negative thinker than this will require. Effort and time will be needed to unlearn your negative pattern. 5. Make a list of your friends to determine who is the most positive thinker among them and deliberately cultivate his society. Do not abandon your negative friends, but get closer to those with a positive point of view for a while until you have absorbed their spirit. Then you can go back among your negative friends and give them your newly acquired thought pattern without taking on their negativism. 6. Avoid arguments, but whenever a negative attitude is expressed, counter with a positive and optimistic opinion. 7. Pray a great deal and always let your prayer take the form of thanksgiving on the assumption that God is giving you great and wonderful things. For if you think He is, He surely is. God will not give you any greater blessing than you can believe in. He wants to give you great things, but even He cannot make you take anything greater than you are equipped by faith to receive. According to your faith, that is in proportion to, be it unto you. Matthew 9 verse 29. The secret of a better and more successful life is to cast out those old, dead, unhealthy thoughts. Substitute for them new, vital, dynamic faith thoughts. You can depend upon it. That is, an inflow of new thoughts will remake you and your life. Chapter 14. Relax for easy power. Every night in these United States, more than 6 million sleeping tablets are required to put the American people to sleep. This startling statement was made to me several years ago by a drug manufacturer at a convention of that industry where I was giving a speech. Though his assertion seemed incredible, I have been told by others who are in a position to know that the above estimate is now an understatement. In fact, I heard another good authority assert that the American people are using about 12 million doses of sleeping tablets per day. That is enough to put every 12th American to sleep tonight. Statistics show that the use of sleeping tablets has risen 1,000% in recent years. But a more recent statement is even more startling. According to the vice president of a large drug manufacturing concern, approximately 7 billion half grain tablets are consumed yearly, which works out at about 19 million tablets per night. What a pathetic situation. Sleep is a natural restorative process. One would think that any person after a day's work would be able to sleep peacefully, but apparently Americans have even lost the art of sleeping. In fact, so keyed up are they that I, a minister with ample opportunity to test the matter, must report that the American people are so nervous and high strung that now it is almost next to impossible to put them to sleep with a sermon. It has been years since I have seen anyone sleep in church, and that is a sad situation. A Washington official who loves to juggle figures, especially astronomical figures, told me that last year in the United States there was a total of 7.5 billion headaches. This works itself out at approximately 50 headaches per head per annum. Have you had your quota yet this year? Just how this official arrived at these figures, he did not say. But shortly after a conversation, I noticed a report that in recent year, the drug industry sold 11 million pounds of aspirin. Perhaps this era might appropriately be termed the aspirin age, as one author had called it. An authoritative source declares that every other hospital bed in the United States is occupied by a patient who was put there not because he encountered a germ or had an accident or developed an organic malady, but because of his inability to organize and discipline his emotions. In a clinic, 500 patients were examined, and 386, or 77%, were found to be ill of psychosomatic difficulties, that is, physical illness caused largely by unhealthy mental states. Another clinic made a study of a large number of ulcer cases and reported that nearly half were made ill not as the result of physical troubles, but because the patients worried too much or hated too much, had too much guilt, or were tension victims. A doctor from still another clinic made the observation that, in his opinion, medical men, despite all extraordinary scientific developments, are now able to heal by the means of science alone less than half the maladies brought them. He declares that in many cases patients are sending back into their bodies the diseased thoughts of their minds. Prominent among these diseased thoughts are anxiety and tension. This unhappy situation has become so serious that in our own Marble Collegiate Church, 5th Avenue at 29th Street, New York City, we now have 12 psychiatrists on the staff under supervision of Dr. Smiley Blanton. Why psychiatrists on the staff of a church? The answer is that psychiatry is a science. Its function is the analysis, diagnosis, and treatment of human nature according to a certain well-authenticated laws and procedures. Christianity may also be thought of a science. It is a philosophy, a system of theology, a system of metaphysics, and a system of worship. It also works itself out in moral and ethical codes. But Christianity also has the characteristics of a science in that it is based upon a book which contains a system of techniques and formulas designed for the understanding and treatment of human nature. The laws are so precise and have been so often demonstrated when proper conditions of understanding, belief, and practice are applied that religion may be said to form an exact science. When a person comes to our clinic, the first counselor is perhaps a psychiatrist who, in a kindly and careful manner, studies the problem and tells the patient why he does what he does. This is a most important fact to learn. Why, for example, have you had an inferiority complex all your life long? Or why have you been haunted by fear? Or again, why do you nurse resentment? Why have you always been shy and reticent? Or why do you do stupid things or make inept statements? These phenomena of your human nature do not just happen. There is a reason why you do what you do, and it is an important day in your life experience when at last you discover the reason. Self-knowledge is the beginning of self-correction. Following the self-knowledge process, the psychiatrist turns the patient over to the pastor who tells him how to do what he ought to do. The pastor applies to the case in scientific and systematic form the therapies of faith, prayer, and love. The psychiatrist and the minister pool their knowledge and combine their therapies with the result that many people have found a new life and happiness. The minister does not attempt to be a psychiatrist, nor the psychiatrist a pastor. Each performs his own function, but always in cooperation. The Christianity utilized in this procedure is the undiluted teachings of Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior of man's life. We believe in the practical, absolute, and workability of the teachings of Jesus. We believe that we can indeed do all things through Christ, Philippians 4 verse 13. The gospel as we work with it proves to be a literal fulfillment of the astonishing promise. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man, the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. 1 Corinthians verse 2 to 9. Believe in Christ, believe in his system of thought and practice. Believe and you will overcome all fear, hate, inferiority, guilt, and every form and manner of defeat. In other words, no good thing is too good to be true. You have never seen, never heard, never even imagined the things God will give to those who love him. In the work of the clinic, one frequent problem is that of tension. This, to a very large degree, may be called the prevailing malady of the American people. But not only the American people seem to suffer from tension. The Royal Bank of Canada some time ago devoted its monthly letter to this problem under the title, Let's Slow Down, and says it in part, this monthly letter does not set itself up as a counselor of mental and physical health, but it is attempting to break down a problem that bedevils every adult person in Canada, and I might add in the United States as well. The bank letter goes on to say, we are victims of a mounting tension. We have difficulty in relaxing. Our high-strung nervous systems are on a perpetual binge. Caught up as we are in the rush all day, every day, and far into the night, we are not living fully. We must remember what Carlyle called the calm supremacy of the spirit over its circumstances. When a prominent banking institution calls to the attention of its customers the fact that they are failing to derive from life what they really want from it because they have become victims of tension, it is certainly time something was done about the situation. In St. Petersburg, Florida, I actually saw a machine on the street equipped with a sign, "What is your blood pressure?" You could put a coin in a slot and get the bad news. When you can buy a reading on blood pressure like you buy gum out of a slot machine, it indicates that many people have this problem. One of the simplest methods for reducing tension is to practice the "Edie does it" attitude. Do everything more slowly, less hectically, and without pressure. My friend Branch Rickey, famous baseball man, told me that he would not use a player no matter how well he hits, fields, or runs if he is guilty of overpressing. To be a successful big league baseball player, there must be a flow of easy power through every action and of course through the mind. The most effective way to hit a ball is by the easy method, where all the muscles are flexible and operating in correlated power. Try to kill the ball and you will slice it or maybe miss it altogether. This is true in golf, in baseball, in every sport. From 1907 through to 1919, except for 1 year, 1916, T.Y. Cobb's batting average led the American League, a record so far as I know that has never been surpassed. T.Y. Cobb presented the bat with which he performed his extraordinary feats to a friend of mine. I was permitted to take this bat in my hand, which I did with considerable awe. In the spirit of the game, I struck a pose as if to bat. Doubtless my batting stance was not in any sense reminiscent of the immortal slugger. In fact, my friend, who was himself at one time a minor league baseball player, chuckled and said, T.Y. Cobb, who'd never do it that way. You are too rigid, too tense. You are obviously overtrying. You would probably strike out. It was beautiful to watch T.Y. Cobb. The name and the bat were one. It was a study in rhythm, and one marveled at the ease rather, with which he got into the swing. He was a master of easy power. It is the same in all success. Analyze people who are really efficient and they always seem to do things easily with a minimum of effort. In so doing, they release maximum power. One of my friends, a famous businessman who handles important affairs and varied interests, always seems to be at ease. He does everything efficiently and quickly, but is never in a dither. He never has that anxious, frazzled look on his face which marks people who cannot handle either their time or their work. I inquired the secret of his obviously easy power. He smiled and replied, Oh, it isn't much of a secret. I just try to keep myself in tune with God. That's all. Every morning after breakfast, he explained, my wife and I would go into the living room for a period of quietness. One of us reads aloud some inspirational piece to get us into the mood of meditation. It may be a poem or a few paragraphs of a book. Following that, we sit quietly, each praying or meditating according to his own mood and manner. Then together we affirm the thought that God is filling us with strength and quiet energy. This is a definite 15-minute ritual and we never miss it. We couldn't get along without it. We would crack up. As a result, I always seem to feel that I have more energy than I need and more power than is required. So said this efficient man who demonstrates easy power. I know a number of men and women who practice this or similar techniques for reducing tension. It is becoming quite a general and popular procedure nowadays. One February morning, I was rushing down the long veranda of a Florida hotel with a handful of mail just in from my office in New York. I had come to Florida for a midwinter vacation, but hadn't seemed to get out of the routine of dealing with my mail the first thing in the morning. As I hurried by, headed for a couple of hours' work with the mail, a friend from Georgia who was sitting in a rocking chair with his hat partially over his eyes stopped me in my headlong rush and said in his slow and pleasant southern drawl, Where are you rushing for, doctor? That's no way to do down here in Florida sunshine. Come over here and sit in one of these rocking chairs and help me practice one of the greatest of the arts. Mystified, I said, Help you practice one of the greatest of the arts? Yes, he replied, an art that is passing out. Not many people know how to do it anymore. Well, I asked, please tell me what it is. I don't see you practicing any art. Oh, yes, I am, he said. I am practicing the art of just sitting in the sun. Sit here and let the sun fall on your face. It is warm like and it smells good. It makes you feel peaceful inside. Did you ever think about the sun? He asked. It never hurries. It never gets excited. It just works slowly and makes no noise. That is, it doesn't push any buzzers, doesn't answer any telephones, doesn't ring any bells, just goes on a shining. And the sun does more work in the fraction of an instant than you and I could ever do in a lifetime. Think of what it does. It causes the flowers to bloom, keeps the trees growing, warms the earth, causes the fruits and vegetables to grow, and the crops to ripen, lifts water to send back on the earth, and it makes you feel peaceful like. I find that when I sit in the sun and let the sun work on me, it puts some rays into me and gives me energy. That is when I take time to sit in the sun. So throw that mail over in the corner, he said, and sit down here with me. I did so, and when finally I went to my room and got at my mail, I finished it in no time at all, and there was a good part of the day left for vacation activities and for more sitting in the sun. Of course, I know a lot of lazy people who had been sitting in the sun all their lives and it never amounted to anything. There is a difference between sitting and relaxing and just sitting. But if you sit and relax and think about God and get yourself in tune with Him and open yourself to the flow of His power, then sitting is not laziness. In fact, it is about the best way to renew power. It produces driving energy, the kind of energy you drive, not the kind that drives you. The secret is to keep the mind quiet, avoiding all hectic reactions of haste, and to practice peaceful thinking. The essence of the art is to keep the tempo down, to perform your responsibilities on the basis of the most efficient conservation of energy. It is advisable to adopt one or two workable plans through the use of which you can become expert in the practice of relaxed and easy power. One of the best such plans was suggested to me by Captain Eddie Rickenbacker. A very busy man, he manages to handle his responsibilities in a manner indicating reserves of power. I found one element of his secret quite by accident. I was filming a program for television with him. We had been assured that the work could be done quickly, leaving him free to go to the many other matters on his daily agenda. However, the filming was long delayed beyond the time anticipated. I noted, however, that the captain showed no signs of agitation. He did not become nervous or anxious. He did not pace up and down, putting in frantic calls to his office. Instead, he accepted the situation gracefully. There were a couple of old rocking chairs at the studio, apparently intended for use in a set other than ours. He sat in one rocker in a very relaxed manner. I have always been a great admirer of Eddie Rickenbacker, and I commented on his lack of tension. I know how busy you are, I said, and I marvel at the way you sit quiet, composed, and peaceful like. For myself, I was a bit disturbed largely because I regretted to take so much of Captain Rickenbacker's time. How can you be so imperturbable? I asked. He laughingly replied, Oh, I just practice what you preach. Come on, easy does it. Sit down here beside me. I pulled up the other rocking chair and did a little relaxing on my own. Then I said, Eddie, I know you have some technique to attain this impressive serenity. Tell me about it, please. He is a modest man, but because of my persistence, he gave me a formula which he says he uses frequently. I now use it myself and it is very effective. It may be described as follows. First, collapse physically. Practice this several times a day. Let go every muscle in the body. Conceive of yourself as a jellyfish, getting your body into complete looseness. Form a mental picture of a huge burlap bag of potatoes. Then mentally cut the bag, allowing the potatoes to roll out. Think of yourself as the bag. What is more relaxed than an empty burlap bag? The second element in the formula is to drain the mind. Several times each day, drain the mind of all irritation, all resentment, disappointment, frustration, and annoyance. Unless you drain the mind frequently and regularly, these unhappy thoughts will accumulate until a major blasting out process will be necessary. Keep the mind drained of all factors which would impede the flow of relaxed power. Third, think spiritually. To think spiritually means to turn the mind at regular intervals to God. At least 3 times a day, lift up your eyes onto the hills. This keeps you in tune with God's harmony. It refills you with peace. This 3-point program greatly impressed me and I have been practicing for some months. It is an excellent method for relaxing and living on the basis of easy does it. From my friend Dr. Z. Taylor Berkowitz of New York City, I have learned much of the art of working relaxed. Often when under pressure with an office full of patients and telephone calls coming in, he will suddenly stop, lean against his desk, and talk to the Lord in a manner both natural and respectful. I like the style of his prayer. He tells me that it runs something like this. Look, Lord, I am pushing myself too hard. I am getting jittery. Here I am counseling people to practice quietness. Now I must practice it. Touch me with your healing peace. Give me composure, quietness, strength, and conserve my nervous energy so that I can help those people who come to me. He stands quietly for a minute or two. Then he thanks the Lord and proceeds with full but easy power to do his work. Often in making sick calls about the city, he finds himself in a traffic jam. He has a most interesting method of using these potentially irritating delays as opportunities to relax. Shutting off his engine, he slumps in his seat, putting his head back, closing his eyes, and has even been known to go to sleep. He says there is no reason to be concerned about going to sleep because the strident honking of horns will awaken him when traffic begins to move. These interludes of complete relaxation in the midst of traffic last for only a minute or two, but they have energy renewal value. It is surprising how many minutes or fractions of minutes during the day you can use to rest where you are. If even in such fractional periods you deliberately draw on God's power, you can maintain adequate relaxation. It isn't length of relaxation time that produces power, it is the quality of the experience. I am told that Roger Babson, the famous statistician, frequently goes into an empty church and sits quietly. Perhaps he reads one or two hymns and in so doing finds rest and renewal. Dale Carnegie, under pressure, goes to a church near his New York City office to spend a quarter hour in prayerful meditation. He says he leaves his office for this purpose when busiest. This demonstrates control of time rather than being controlled by it. It also indicates watchfulness, lest tension develop beyond a controllable degree. I encountered a friend on a train from Washington to New York one night. This man is a member of Congress and he explained that he was on his way to his district to speak at a meeting of his constituents. The particular group he was about to address was hostile to him, he said, and would probably try to make things very difficult for him. Although they represented a minority in his district, he was going to face them just the same. They are American citizens and I am their representative. They have a right to meet with me if they want to. You do not seem to be much worried about it, I commented. No, he answered. If I get worried about it, then I will be upset and will not handle the situation well. Do you have any particular method for handling such a tense situation? I asked. Oh, yes, he replied. There will be a noisy crowd, but I have my own way of meeting such situations without tension. I will breathe deeply, talk quietly, speak sincerely, be friendly and respectful, hold my temper, and trust in God to see me through. I have learned one more fact, the congressman continued, and that is in any situation be relaxed, keep calm, take a friendly attitude, have faith, do your best. Do this and usually you can make things come out all right. I have no doubt about the ability of this congressman to live and work without tension and what is more, successfully to attain his objectives. When we were doing some construction work at my farm in Pauling, New York, I watched a workman swinging a shovel. He was shoveling a pile of sand. It was a beautiful sight. Stripped to the waist, his lean and muscular body worked with precision and correlation. The shovel rose and fell in perfect rhythm. He would push the shovel into the pile, lean his body against it, and drive it deep into the sand. Then in a clear, free swing it came up and the sand was deposited without a break in the motion. Again the shovel went back into the sand against his body, leaned against it. Again the shovel lifted easily in a perfect arc. One almost had a feeling that he would swing in rhythm to the motion of his workman. Indeed, the man did sing as he worked. I was not surprised when the foreman told me that he considered one of his best workmen. That he rather is considered one of his best workmen. The foreman also spoke of him as good-humored, happy, and a pleasant person with whom to work. Here was a relaxed man who lived with joyous power, master of the art of easy does it. Relaxation results from recreation, and the process of recreation should be continuous. The human being is meant to be attached to a continual flow of force that proceeds from God through the individual and back to God for renewal. When one lives in tune with this constantly recreative process, he learns the indispensable quality to relax and work on the basis of easy does it. Now, how to master this skill? Here are 10 rules for taking the hard way out of your job. Try these proven methods for working hard easily. They will help you to relax and have easy power. 1. Do not get the idea that you are at last carrying the world on your shoulders. Don't strain so hard. Don't take yourself so seriously. 2. Determine to like your job. Then it will become a pleasure, not drudgery. Perhaps you do not need to change your job. Change yourself and your work will seem different. 3. Plan your work. Work your plan. Lack of system produces that I am swamped feeling. 4. Don't try to do everything at once. That is why time is spread out. Ye that wise advice from the Bible. This is one thing I do. Philippians 3 verse 13. 5. Get a correct mental attitude, remembering that ease or difficulty in your work depends upon how you think about it. Think it's hard and you make it hard. Think it's easy and it tends to become easy. 6. Become efficient in your work. Knowledge is power over your job. It is always easier to do a thing right. 7. Practice being relaxed. Easy always does it. Don't press or thug. Take it in your stride. 8. Discipline yourself not to put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Accumulation of undone jobs makes your work harder. Keep your work up to schedule. 9. Pray about your work. You will get relaxed efficiency by so doing. 10 and final, take on the unseen partner. It is surprising the load he will take off you. God is as much at home in offices, factories, stores, kitchens, and in churches as in churches. He knows more about your job than you do. His help will make your work easy.